Welcome back to Teen Story Share. This week we're going to be starting a new book, Ghosts of Heaven by Marcus Sedgwick. And as you can see, this was a Prince honor book. The Prince is pretty much the most prestigious medal that's awarded to young adult books, kind of like the Newbery for children's books. Okay, so this is sort of a creepy, weird, and mysterious book, which is actually 4 stories in one. The book's divided into 4 parts, and the author's note at the beginning explains that you can actually read the 4 parts in any order that you want, and the story will still make sense. All 4 stories are linked together, not by characters, not by time. Actually, they all have different time periods and different characters, but they're linked by the symbol of the spiral and the symbol of the helix in different unusual ways that you will discover. So I'm actually going to be going to the 4th quarter, the very last one, so quarter 4, the Song of Destiny. We're only going to do 1 chapter, and then next week we'll do another chapter and continue for a few weeks that way. 1. Every night he dreams of things for which there are no words. The dreams are strange and last all night. Each night is 10 years long. His days, by comparison, are but a blink in time. 12 hours is all he is allowed, 12 hours for waking. To do whatever work must be done, 12 hours every 10 years. He has been woken twice so far. When he is woken for the 3rd time, Sentinel Bowman is 425 trillion kilometers from home. 12 hours is more than enough, he decided the first time he was awake. Without the need to eat, and with a ship that runs itself, there is in truth little to do but read the reports of the 5 sentinels who were awake before him, 1 per year, each for their own 12 hours. Once he's done that, he writes his own report as Sentinel 6, adds it to the log of the others, and posts all of them for the 4 sentinels who will wake after him to read, each a turn, a year apart. Outside the 12-hour slots during which the sentinels are awake, for the rest of each year the Song of Destiny ghosts on through space, carrying its cargo of 500 who float somewhere between life and death, in long sleep. Yes, Bowman said aloud to no one, the first time he woke. He wanted to see if his voice still worked after 10 years in sentinel sleep. A gentler but vastly more expensive technique than that applied to the 500 pods, hence the allowance of only 10 sentinels to each wake alone for routine maintenance and surveillance of the cargo and other of the ship's systems, just 12 hours every year. When the 500 reach their destination, to wake from long sleep will be a slow and laborious process. The bodies slowly raised from sub-zero temperatures, the oxygenated preservation fluid drained from lungs and airways, the sustaining gel pumped from their digestive system, and so on and so on. The whole method will take a day or more, the waker only fully recovering consciousness some hours after that. Despite the ship's gravity system and constant bone-muscle stimulation on the sleepers, it will take weeks of recuperation before they can be said to be close to functioning normally. The trials back on Earth for long sleep were messy and dangerous. Only after decades of research into each individual obstacle posed by trying to shut down aging to an absolute minimum was the technique declared ready for purpose. Sentinel sleep, a rival system developed during the same period, is another matter. It is an almost prohibitively expensive technology, aboard a ship where every single thing is unimaginably expensive. But waking takes only half an hour or so, during which Bowman tries to hold on to the dreams that slip through his mind, teasing and taunting his memory like sand running through his fingers. Once the waking process is over, the lid to Sentinel Bowman's pod beeps twice as it glides open. Then there's only the need to remove the feeding and excretion tubes from his body before he climbs out. Now, waking for the 3rd time, he stands on the gently curving deck, testing his legs against the force of gravity. Even though he designed several of the ship's systems himself, he still marvels at the elegant simplicity of the gravity system, artificial gravity created by the application of basic physics. The ship is a toroid class 4, essentially a giant ring 2 kilometers wide, spinning perpendicular to its direction of travel. The Song of Destiny, like all the toroid 4s, spins at just the right velocity to create a continuous outward momentum almost equal to the force of gravity on Earth. It is this ring that forms the living space of the ship, if living is the word that can be applied to the 500 long sleep pods and 10 sentinel pods that line its walls. On deck, the gravitational effect is almost indistinguishable from Earth. There are a couple of telltale signs that things are different. The gentle concave curve of the floor, and the fact that on the ship gravity has a supplementary direction. Yes, the ship spins at its constant speed, so gravity pulls down just as it would on Earth. But then there is the rotation to consider, which means that walking one way around the ring of the ship's deck is more like walking uphill, and walking the other something like walking down. Even though for the majority of the time everyone on board the Song is sleeping, gravity is a necessary part of the fight against the long-term effects of space travel. And when the ship finally arrives at its destination and goes into orbit, then of course it will truly come into its own. For now, it merely makes the Sentinels' work sessions that much easier than they would be in 0G. The ship is completed by the 5 bases spaced out equally around the rim, like 5 stones spread around an eternity ring. Each is a replica of the other. Inside are computer terminals where the Sentinels work, chlorophyll banks, water recirculation systems, nutrient facilities, control systems for the ship's motor, and a planet-to-planet ship, or PTP. Yes, says Bowman, as he wakes for the 3rd time and climbs from his pod. He slides open the drawer from underneath the pod and pulls on his Sentinel's uniform, dark gray, orange trim. Though he is effectively alone on the ship, it wouldn't seem right to go to work naked. Besides, there are the CCTV cameras in various key places on deck, and he knows that some of the other Sentinels are women. Yes, he says, 12 hours are more than enough. He gazes down the length of the deck as far as he can see until it curves upward out of sight. Every 10 meters is a long sleep pod. After 50 long sleep pods, there's the pod of Sentinel 7. 50 pods the other way would take him to Sentinel 5. Whenever he passes one of his colleagues, he waves a hand in greeting. He's never met any of them, and never will. Not till the journey is over. He saw a couple of them briefly on Venture Day, as they were installed in their pods for real, all practice done, a day or so before the ship left Earth orbit. He doesn't know them, but they're just like him, he supposes, each chosen for their special skills and aptitude, to be the guardians of 500 souls through space for 100 years. There's not the slightest sound and not the slightest movement anywhere. Inside each pod rests a just living human being, each of them invisible. Since the ship has a radius of 1 kilometer, it's over 1,200 meters from one base to the next. Bowman's pod is 400 meters from where he has spent 24 hours in the last 26 years. Base 4. The lights are dim, but grow brighter as he walks toward the base. He catches sight of his reflection in one of the small ports in the wall of the ring. It faces forward, in the direction they're flying, but there's no sense of movement at all. The stars are too far away for them to change position as they travel. It's hard to be sure in this light, but there's his face, looking back at him, not a day older than when he first climbed into the Sentinel pod, 26 years ago. It doesn't seem possible, but it is. Yet it's only possible because his waking hours are so limited. There is no option. In 11.5 hours, he must be refitting himself in his pod, waiting to be taken into Sentinel sleep again. If he misses just one deadline with the pod, his life expectancy will drop vastly. The chances are he will not make it to their destination a young man, if alive at all. That's when it occurs to him, staring through the narrow porthole. He, like all the others on board the Song of Destiny, is not traveling through space in a straight line. The ship itself is traveling in a straight line, but the ship is spinning, so everyone on board is rotating as they move forward at something close to 9/10 light speed. He's traveling in a spiral, a helix through space. He ambles into base 4, shutting the door to the ring, only vaguely wondering why he is bothering to shut the door when there's no operational need to do so. If he'd stopped to think, he might have realized that the sight of pod after pod stretching away round the curve of the ring unnerves him slightly, as if he's flying a mortuary through space. He knows none of these people, none of them. That's why he was chosen for his job as Sentinel. In part, at least. Along with the other Sentinels, it is his job simply to see them and the ship safely through space. He flops down into the chair in front of Terminal Base 4, and that's when he sees the series of red lights blinking on the screen in front of him. 6 of the 500 are dead. Alright, and next time we will be reading Chapter 2. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend. Bye!